This is the challenge called Challenge Epic Spies Assignment. You'll be given a series of business rules for building an application that allows a spy agency, Epic Spies, to assign a spy to a new project or to a new mission, okay? And we'll not worry about saving this data in a database of some sort. We'll do that much later in another series. We're just going to capture the information and then spit out a message if they satisfy the business rules by their selection on our web page. All right, so let me show you how this works before we even talk about the business rules. What you'll do is you'll be able to select a spy name, like here, I'll just create Gordo, and then a new assignment name, and we'll call this Ticket to Zanzibar. Okay, just anything. And now we need to first of all select the end of Gordo's previous assignment. When is he coming off his previous assignment? By default, we're going to select today's date. All right, so we'll just leave that selected. Then we're also going to select the start of the new assignment, this new Ticket to Zanzibar assignment. And by default, we'll set it to 22 days from today. And then we'll set the projected end of the new assignment to 21 days from today. That'll make a 7-day assignment. All right, and then we're going to click the Assign Spy. Now, if we're successful, it will give us the following message: the assignment of Gordo to assignment Ticket to Zanzibar is authorized. The budget total is $3,500. Okay, so we'll look at the business rules in just a moment, but it's basically, we're going to, as a project manager, we're going to find out how much it costs for me in my project, my Ticket to Zanzibar project, to have Gordo on my staff for 7 days. All right, and so we'll multiply that. It'll cost $500 per day to have Gordo on my staff. Okay, there's also another business rule that says if Gordo is on my staff for more than, I believe, 21 days. So let me put it way out in the future here. Let's put it like on the 15th of August, okay? If that's the case, then not only will we pay him $500 per day, but we'll also tack on an extra $1,000, all right? And then the last business rule is that there must be 14 days between the end of the previous assignment and the start of the new assignment. So Gordo needs 2 weeks off between assignments because, you know, as a spy, it's pretty stressful. So he'll be able to vacation in Fiji or whatever the case might be, whatever James Bond would do. Okay. And so if we don't give him enough time, so we say the very next day he has to start this assignment, and we click Assign Spy, we'll get an error message. It'll say error must allow at least 2 weeks between the previous assignment and the new assignment. And notice that it defaults back and puts 14 days as the earliest date as a manager I can assign him is July 22nd. Okay, so where do you find all these business rules? Well, here, if you take a look in the CSASP_0 should be 19 challenge, I think. I may have the numbers a little bit wrong, but whatever's associated with this video number. You'll see this Epic Spies business rules.txt, and let me turn on word wrap here. Okay. You'll see the challenge name. You should see the fact that the logo should only be 190 pixels tall. Now that's going to be an issue because if you take a look at this image, we just double click it, I think it starts out at like 240. So you're going to have to figure out how to resize this image, and I'm not going to tell you how to do it, all right? You need to figure it out on your own, but you could probably resize it the way that you think you can resize it in Visual Studio, all right? It shouldn't be, don't try something really crazy, all right? Hover your mouse cursor over it and see what your options are. All right, moving on. There are 3 business rules. All right, so the first business rule is that you need to initialize the calendar controls. Make sure that the end of the previous assignment, this one here, this first calendar, is set to today. All right, let's move this. So by default, whatever today's date is while you're working on this, that should be the selection for the first calendar. The end of the previous assignment will by default end today. Make sure that the start date of the new assignment is set for an additional 14 days from today. So it's set to the 22nd, 14 days from the 8th. And then finally, make sure that the end date of the new assignment is set for an additional 21 days from today. And so that would put us way out in the future. I think I need to run this again. I forget what the date is, but it'd probably be the 29th, I think, if I'm correct here, in this particular case. All right? So make sure you initialize the calendars as the application first loads. The next business rule is that there is a union of spy workers, and there must be 2 weeks of paid time between assignments because they need their time off, right? So this goes back to that assignment that if we were to try to assign the spy to the 21st, that's only 13 days. We'll click the assign spy and we'll get that error message at the very bottom, okay? Plus, we'll, as you can see here, also show the manager the earliest available date on the calendar by selecting and showing that date in the start of new date calendar. So it puts the date back from the 21st back to the 22nd, okay? So that's the second business rule. The third business rule, that spies cost $500 per day against your assignment's budget. So display the budget to the manager in a text area at the bottom of the web page. So we're going to find the elapsed number of days between the start of the new assignment and the end of the new assignment. So in this case, if I choose there should only be 6 days, and I click Assign Spy, it should be, whoops, I'm in August, I'm in the wrong day here. Let's put it back to July, let's go July 28th, that should only be 6 days, and 6 times 500 should be 3,000, all right? So that makes sense. That's the next business rule. And then finally, if the assignment is greater than 3 weeks, an additional $1,000 budget fee will be assessed. So we'll tack on to this number, 1,000, if it's 1 week, 2 weeks, so sometime in August. And I'm not going to be able to do the math just off the top of my head here, but we'll pick the 5th and then click Assign Spy. And you can see it's probably would be $6,000, and then we add on an extra 1,000. All right. So let me give you a couple of words of encouragement before you get started here. Just because the business rules have numbers next to them, like business rule 1, business rule 2, business rule 3, that doesn't mean that's the order that you necessarily have to implement them in code. All right. You do whatever makes sense for as you're building the application. And so that's the first hint I'm going to give you. The second hint is that, remember from a previous lesson, we talked about setting breakpoints. If you get stuck and you can't figure out why things are not working correctly, maybe it's because your date comparisons are wrong, maybe your calculations are wrong, set a breakpoint and step through your code to see what the problem really is. All right. The third thing is that you're going to need to use date times and time spans, and you're going to need to use the subtract method in order to find a span between two dates. Okay. And then remember that unless it's otherwise specified, all dates should be at midnight, so 12:00:00 a.m. and it's all the way into 11:59:59 p.m. Okay, so that would affect your use of the greater than and the less than when comparing two dates. All right, and then that's about it. I think those are the only requirements. Hopefully I've given you enough hints and given you the requirements and given you the assets in the form of screenshots here, so you don't have to constantly refer back to this video in order to build this application. Okay, this is the biggest application that I've asked you to build yet, and I think the significance of this is that you're going to have to break these things down into small chunks and just try to tackle one tiny bit at first, another tiny bit next. And this is where a lot of developers run into problems. They say, I understand the concepts of C#, but when I sit down to apply those concepts, I'm confused. I don't know what to do next. And so what I would recommend is you just break it into the smallest possible parts. And like, for example, let's take a look at the business rules one more time. And let's wrap them. Okay. What I would do first, like let's take this as an example. Spies cost $500 per day against your assignment's budget. All right, display the budget to the manager in the text at the bottom of the web page. How would I go about solving that? Well, the assignment's length is going to be the difference between the start date and the end date. So that's the first thing I need to determine. Once I have that span of time, I know how time spans work. So I'm going to find out the number of days in that time span and multiply it by 500. And that will give me the result that I can show to in the form of this formatted string. Okay? So that's how I would walk through bit by bit for the logic portion of these assignments from this point on. And you need to develop that muscle, because I think that's a big hurdle for most developers to get through is figuring out the logic and the next thing that I need to do. Break it down into small pieces. All right? So if you get stuck, check out the next lesson. Hopefully you can get this on your own. If you can, wow, I'm impressed. If you can't get this the first time through, and I'm going to encourage you with this in the next, in the solution video, keep trying until you get it on your own without any help from the solution video. That might mean you need to do this for a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, until it sinks in the thought process that you need to go through to solve this challenge. Okay? You can do this. You can do this. Just struggle just a little bit, and I bet you can do this. All right, we'll see you in the solution video. Thank you.